Now, for the folks who are asking, like, what did you ask about the Jewish students? Of course, I'm thinking about the Jewish students on campus. Of course, I'm thinking about them. So let's hear from a Jewish person who understands the nuances of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and also being a Jewish person. He's not so far from college age. He's a pretty young man. John Lovitz, make sure you play from the very beginning, please.
Me to put on my Jew hat for a moment. I actually, this is an accident. I'm actually wearing a deli hat, so it is. I'm actually literally wearing a Jew hat today. Let's say that this person had a bunch of anti-Semitic comments. Protected. Anti-Semitism is protected speech. I don't like it. I don't like a lot of what I heard at some of these protests that I do think go from anti-Zionism into pure anti-Semitism on the regular. But like to see the Anti-Defamation League put out a comment with this sort of to be sure at the end about everyone deserving due process, but ultimately coming down on the side of what the Trump administration is doing is so fucking stupid. The idea that like be a kind of patron to what Trump's doing, be like a good Jew who supports the regime, that'll protect us in the end. The thing that like protects Jewish people from anti-Semitism is the culture of freedom, a legal order that protects freedom, including the freedom of green card holders, not just citizens, but non-citizens in this country. That protection is ultimately what makes Jews safe in America. The idea that going down a road in which people think it is defensible for the Trump administration to come knocking on somebody's door who has not been accused of a crime to revoke their immigration status for speech and protest you don't like, it's obviously morally reprehensible, but it is so fucking stupid in the long term. That makes every Jewish person in America less safe. Think about the road we're going on. It's like there are posters in the schools. They say, first they came for the socialists. Yep. What do they think comes after that? And then they were cool? Like, it's so stupid. It's so obvious. And like, there's all these people that have pretended to care about history and to learn from history and think about history. And it's happening right in front of our faces. And they're too either cynical or naive to realize that they're the people not doing the right thing in the moment when they're supposed to.
Thank you very much. Did you guys understand that everything has nuance? Everything, there's a nuance to everything, and you can be Jewish and understand that. I don't agree with them, but I think he has a right to due process and a right to freedom of speech. I want to bring in Dave Aronberg. He is an American politician, serves as a state attorney of Palm Beach County, Florida, 2013 to 2025. Also, we call him the Florida lawman.
Thanks. It's great to be back with you, Don.
Yeah. Good to be back. Can we talk this? Yes, lemon law. This is real. This case is really bothering me. It's got me down. It's really thrown me off kilter. What's happening here?
Well, here's the thing. What this guy is in jeopardy of being deported for is that he may have been espousing support for a terrorist organization. And under the law, it says that, according to law, I'm going to read it for you here. The Immigration Nationality Act, it says that you're allowed to deport any alien who endorses or espouses terrorist activity or persuades others to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or support a terrorist organization. Now, it is a pretty broad sentence there, but does the administration have legitimate grounds to win this in the courts that he would be deported? Yes. And I know people are saying, well, First Amendment rights. Yeah. But people on green cards don't have the same exact First Amendment rights as
Dave. I agree with you on that. But where's the evidence? Why haven't they charged him with anything? Where is the evidence that he has ties to Hamas,
right,
or a terrorist organization?
Well, first off, you don't have to have a crime to be deported, right? It's so the fact that he's not charged with a crime does not matter here. It matters what he does, and includes what he says. So when people say First Amendment, look at his actions, not his words. Well, you can look at his words as well. And Don, that's where I keep an open mind, because I want to see exactly what he did and said. I know that for Jewish students at Columbia who are threatened and hassled and couldn't go to school because of guys like this, they probably are breathing a sigh of relief that he's no longer around to terrorize them. But whether that's deportable or not, I think that's for a judge. And that's where he does have due process rights. He has not been deported. He's going to go see a judge, and this will be settled in the courts.
Okay, so those due process rights, that means they can arrest him and detain him before they decide on what they're even charging him with or what they want to deport him for? Can they just say, hey, I imagine if you're on a visa or whatever, they can just tell you to leave anytime for no reason or whatever. They can make up a reason, but he does not. Doesn't he have due process rights as someone who has a green card as a permanent resident?
He does. But you don't have to be charged or convicted of a crime to be sent home based on the specific wording of the Immigration Nationality Act. Also, there's another provision that Marco Rubio is referring to as Secretary of State that does give the Secretary of State broad power to deport someone who is a threat to our national security. But you've got to have the goods. You've got to have evidence that he has expressed support for Hamas or he's done something that exhibits support for Hamas. And so, or is part of a terrorist group. Now, I don't know all the details about it, but that's why this is not, as like your last speaker was very passionate about it. I get it. But this is not so cut and dry. This guy has done some really bad things, okay? He has been terrorizing Jewish students on campus. Whether or not that's deportable, well, let's see.
Well, I want to know, is there evidence that he has been terrorizing Jewish students? Is there evidence that he has ties to Hamas or that he is a Hamas sympathizer? That's what I think everyone is asking. And so far, Marco Rubio or Tom Homan or no one has actually shown any evidence. That is what people are concerned about. And I've said here, if you show me some evidence that any of this is true, then I'll say, okay, fine. But if someone tries to detain me and they say, Don, we're coming to pick you up, and I would say, well, on what grounds are you picking me up? They don't have to show evidence on what grounds that they're picking me up and they're detaining me. It seems like that would just be a basic right of an American citizen, or even one who is here on a.
That's what, see, Don, that's the difference. He's not an American citizen. He's here on a green card, and he's subject to the rights and responsibilities of those on a green card. And if you espouse support for a terrorist organization or espouse views that are in line with Hamas, you could be deported for that. And just a matter of how aggressive the INS officials want to be. And this administration is getting very aggressive. And I don't know if he has ties to Hamas. But you ask.
Well, that's the thing you're saying. If you espouse views and you don't know, that's the whole point. It says he is a legal permanent resident and he has a green card. And so that's the thing. Where is the evidence that this has happened? If there is evidence that he did that, I would say, Dave, you're right, 100%. But where's the evidence? And the judge has stopped him from being deported. Where is that evidence? Why didn't they present that evidence? Why are they not presenting that evidence to the American people right now?
Well, they don't have to present it to the American people. They have to present it to a judge. And the judge is going to make that decision based on the evidence. So you're right that they have to come up with the goods. And as far as whether or not he has intimidated and threatened and terrorized Jewish students, which, by the way, that in itself is not necessarily deportable. That to me just shows that he's not a good guy. But I've spoken to several students from Columbia, and they have felt very intimidated on campus, where the encampments and their classes.
Dave, that's not Dave. I understand that, but that's not the point. And I have been on college campuses for protests here, and when I was a student, and I have been very uncomfortable on college campuses.
Right.
I would not want the people who made me uncomfortable on college campuses picked up and deported because I did not agree with them or because they blocked me from class. Now, if they threatened my being, okay, that's something else. But because someone blocked you from class, okay, yeah, you want to go to class, but that is not like it is a crime that is beyond the pale. It is something that a college student is doing. College students, I believe, should be given wide berth and to be allowed to push and to test the system. So I don't know if I agree with you about that. Now, the law is the law, and whatever the judge decides.
Right.
But I think that at this point, if you are going to pick someone up and you're going to detain them, then you need to tell them and you need to show the evidence. And it appears to me right now, there is no evidence. Otherwise, they would have showed the government and they would have said, hey, this is the evidence we have. And boom. Now, Marco Rubio is saying this is not about free speech. Tom Homan is saying this is about free speech. Somebody's lying somewhere. Someone doesn't have their story together, because if they had the goods, they would have presented it by now. The judge is saying, bring me some evidence.
Right.
And so it's up. So something is not right in the detaining of this person. Shouldn't, before you detain someone, you have the evidence for what you're saying, and not just, well, he might be, and he could have done this, and maybe he's a sympathizer, and maybe he's not. Shouldn't it be like, he's a sympathizer on June such and such of 2024, he did this and said this at a rally, which is of concern to the students and the American people. On May whatever 2024, he blocked this student from going to class. He was leading a protest that stopped the students. I'm not seeing it, Dave. I'm sorry. I hate to disagree with you on this. I know the law is the law, but I hate to disagree with you.
Well, I don't know if we're totally disagreeing, Don, in that I'm waiting to see the evidence too. I'm not saying they don't have it, or they do have it, because they're going to have to present it to a judge to deport him. They can't deport him unless they have something specific. And
you're saying they don't have to have that evidence before they detain someone?
Well, yeah. Well, as immigration goes, there's very broad authority for the president, the secretary of state. For example, the Immigration Naturalization Act actually says that the president can suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens who are deemed to be detrimental to the interests of the United States, and they can impose upon them any restrictions that the president may deem to be appropriate. So there is broad power. And with Marco Rubio is saying, it's not about free speech, it's about this guy is a threat to our national security.
That is, you're giving me hypotheticals, and you're saying that if there's what is deemed to be detriment to the United States,
right? Well, but see that, and that's
how
where
is it? Hold on. How is that deemed to be detrimental to the United States when we thrive on free speech and people having dissenting opinions? That's part of the fabric of America that we espouse and that we love, because we want people who freedom of religion, people have different ideas about political parties. So how is that deemed to be detrimental to the United States? Because you are expressing a First Amendment right that American citizens express, that is expressed here in America.
If it's just his speech about his opposing a two-state solution, he wants the elimination of Israel, that's not going to be enough to deport him. What would be enough is if he endorsed October 7th and Hamas. If you endorse October 7th and say that it should happen again, then yes, then you should be deported.
100%. 100% I agree with you. But where's the evidence? That's what I'm asking you. Before, if someone came to pick up Dave Aronberg and detain you, what would you say to them? Why?
Well, I'm different because I'm a U.S. citizen. This guy's not a U.S.
citizen. I'm asking you, but wouldn't you say what? Why?
I would say, what are the charges? But that's different than if I'm on a green card, where you can detain people because they're deemed to be a threat to the United States. Now, you have to come up with the goods. And that's why you have a judge and you're going to have hearings. So I don't think we're that far off, because
they're deemed to be a threat of the United States, Dave. What I'm trying to tell you is that where is the evidence of him deemed to be a threat of the United States? Why are we picking the United States
or someone who's espoused support for a terrorist organization? So if you go ahead and you say, let's have another October 7th, then that would be enough.
Okay, but I just said that to you. If you said on June whatever he said that he was in support of October 7th, but where is that?
Well, like I said, it's going to have to be proven to a court, or else he's not going to be deported. But the question is, should the United States government, do they have the power to do this? The answer is yes. And can they do it for this guy? Well, the devil's in the details.
Should they do it? Should they do it?
Should they do it? It depends on
the evidence. Are you okay with people just being picked up on just the suspicion of something with no evidence?
No evidence? If they had no evidence, then they wouldn't have picked him up. They picked him up because he was the leader of these infamous campus protests that Jewish students felt were threatening to them, and universally are seen as something that is not in line with American values. Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
Dave, that's no evidence of that, because you disagree with someone. There's no evidence that they are espousing terrorism or have links to terrorism.
Oh, well, again,
there's no evidence. Now, if he had said the things that you said, okay, great. But
that's what the hearing is for.
Send me a speech.
But that's what the hearing is for. And obviously, he's already seen the judge. He's got due process. So when you say he's being arrested, first of all, he's not being arrested. He's on a green card. He's on an immigration hold, and he could be deported. because they have to show that he is someone who is a danger to the national security of the United States, or someone who's espousing support for terrorist organizations. So I assume that the time that they got him, they have enough evidence. And as far as whether we're going to see it, we're going to have to see it, or else he's going to stay in the country.
Okay, Dave, you've been doing this for a long time. Do you know of people that have been picked up without any evidence on the suspicion of something, and there is no evidence that it's actually there? Has that ever happened? Because you said they must have the evidence, otherwise they would not have done it.
Yeah, of course they've got to have some evidence. They can't just do it based on the fact that he hates Israel, or even the fact that he posts anti-Semitic stuff on social media, which he does, but that's not enough to deport him. That's just enough for me to think he's a bad dude. So I'm the one saying that the government has broad powers to keep him and deport him, and then they have to provide evidence. So we're not that far off. I guess you would be a little less willing to use the government's powers to.
Well, I'm a little different because of my interactions, perhaps, with law enforcement, because I know people and have been. People say this is suspicious when they have had no evidence. You are doing this. You are acting suspiciously as someone who has been racially profiled in a store, right, in a retail store, with no actual evidence of anything happening. People just sort of walking around and following me and then calling the police when I have a receipt in my pocket. So to say that someone is, because there is a suspicion of something, that someone automatically has the evidence, for me, honestly, as a Black person, that is bullshit. Because there is no, I have had the cops called on me for shoplifting, Dave, when I had a receipt in my pocket. There was no evidence except in someone's mind I was suspicious. And so I cannot believe that you are here as a member of, the courts and the law enforcement saying they must have evidence or otherwise they would not have done it. I'm sorry, that's hard for me to swallow. I don't get it. I want to know, when you arrest me or detain me, where is the evidence that I am guilty of what you are accusing me of? Otherwise, I don't feel, and perhaps I'm not within the law, that you have the right to detain me unless you have some hard evidence that you are going to show in court in a due process in a matter of time, where my family is not looking all over the world for me, and you are not telling me, and you don't feel obliged or obligated to tell my attorney or my 8-month pregnant wife where I am. That just seems un-American to me, unpatriotic, and not what we are about in this country. I could be wrong. And then I'm just saying, if they have the evidence, fine, then I will change it. But something is just not sitting right with this. And I don't understand why you're saying they have to have the goods because of the suspicion when they have not presented it so far. And that there's this whole big rigmarole going around. And I think that they would want to tamp that down.
Well, I hear you, Don. But my belief is that if they're going to actually have a guy in custody and he's already seen a judge, and they cannot legally keep him in custody unless they have something that shows that he is providing support either through his words or his conduct to a terrorist organization or a terrorist cause, or is a jeopardy to the national security of the United States. And so I do think that unless they have that information, this guy is going to stay in the United States. But if you're asking me to cry tears for a guy who's openly anti-Semitic, I'm not going to do so. If he is,
I don't think anyone is, Dave. That's not the point. No one is doing that. If he is openly anti, well, it's like, but okay.
Well, it does. I got to say, Don, it does seem like there are a lot of people on my side of the aisle, the Democratic side of the aisle, who seem to care a lot more about a terrorist sympathizer than the actual hostages kept by a terrorist organization.
Dave, let me just tell you something. There are people in this country who hate Black people. There are people in this country who are members of the Ku Klux Klan. There are people in this country who are members of neo-Nazi. I don't think that anyone should be rounding them up because they are members and they espouse those views. Now, if they act upon those views and they do something harmful to me, that is a different story. But if we are rounding people up and arresting them because we don't agree with their opinions or with their views, there would be a whole lot of people in this country who would be arrested. I don't like anti-Semites. I am a member of a Black-Jewish alliance. I understand the nuances of this, but I do not think they should be rounding people up for unpopular opinions and beliefs, because half of this country, if not more, would be in jail.
Well, it's not just an unpopular belief. It's someone who, first, is not a U.S. citizen. So he is liable to be deported. He doesn't have the same rights that you and I have because he's on a green card. And if he espouses views that are inimical to the United States, then yes, he can be detained and he can be deported.
Okay, I understand that. Do you think, though, let me ask you this, all right, because we're getting nowhere with this. Do you think if this had not become such a hullabaloo, as my my nun teacher from Barbados taught me, I think she was my 6th or 7th grade teacher, if it had not been for this whole hullabaloo, do you think that Mahmoud Khalil would be gone and deported from this country? If the attorneys had not gotten involved and there wasn't such an uproar about it, would he just be gone and people would not know? Perhaps his wife wouldn't even know where he is?
No, because one thing we have learned in the opening days of the Trump administration is that the one guardrail against unlimited power of the executive branch is the judiciary. Congress has decided to give away all of its power, but the judiciary is a guardrail, and they are involved in this case. In fact, a judge has already prevented him from being deported already. So no, I don't think that would have happened. He's going to get due process, and he'll be able to make his case to a judge, as will the government, and then we'll see what happens. But I just don't think it's as much of a scandal as people on my side of the aisle think, that because he is not a U.S. citizen and he has said some very awful things that, to me, show support for Hamas and terrorism. And if that is indeed the case, then he'll be deported.
Okay. And so if we have, he's a permanent resident, so it doesn't matter. You're saying it doesn't matter. He still doesn't have, as a permanent resident, he doesn't have the same rights as.
That's correct. His green card. That's correct.
Okay. Okay. So then there are people who might say that the president is sympathizing with some, David Duke or that kind of thing. Do you?
Yes, that's First Amendment. Because first, he's a U.S. citizen, and he's not. If he was not a U.S. citizen and he said that Hamas is right, then I think, yeah, then he should be detained and have a hearing and determine whether he should be deported. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Because that's the law. Whether you like it or not, that's the law. If you express support for a terrorist organization, that's the law. I mean,
I understand it, but I want to see the evidence of that support for a terrorist organization. And like you, if he indeed supports a terrorist organization, then whatever the law allows and provides for, that should
correct. Yeah. So we're not that different here, Don.
But before you pick me up in the middle of the night or whenever it was, or when they were returning home, shouldn't you have that evidence first, Dave? Regardless of if you agree with him, whether you think he's anti-Semitic or not, or whatever. Even as a person of color, I would want someone who is a member of MAGA, who I don't agree with this when it comes to insurrections, or who is a member of the KKK. I would not want that for them, because that is not what we do as Americans. Even though I may vehemently disagree with them, I would want them to have due process. I want them to have First Amendment rights, because when they take their First Amendment rights, they're going to take my First Amendment rights. When they take away their due process, they're going to take away my due process.
Now, I don't know what the government has or not. I've seen a lot of stuff on social media, which I don't know what to believe and what not to believe. So I don't even try to espouse the stuff that I've been reading about this guy on social media, because I don't know.
They didn't even know he had a green card. They didn't know that he had a green card.
That's true. When they first arrested him, they did not, and then they said, "Well, your green card's revoked." they took him in. So I don't know what they have, but I think it's important that at some point that we all see it, and the judge will demand it, because if they don't have it, he's not going anywhere.
The producer saying they were planning to pick him up to revoke his student visa. They didn't even know he had a green card. They had no plan. They just wanted to pick him up.
But then the question is, were they allowed to do that? And look, the judge has not released him. And that shows that they're able to do this under current law. Now, maybe you want to change the law. Maybe you don't like the law, and you should say we should not be able to do this under the law. But the law is the law. And if someone is suspected of supporting terrorist activities, or someone who is a danger to the national security of the United States, they can be deported. But they have to have evidence.
What do you think of Representative Jim Himes calling this arrest and detainment fascist? I don't know if you heard the soundbite. We played it before you were on.
No, I haven't heard his soundbite, but
do we have Representative Himes? Some of it, if we can pick it up to where Representative Himes, I think this is on the Mehdi Hassan thing, when Mehdi asks him. Is that the first question that he asks?
I believe so.
Okay, let's listen.
Green card. They say, well, that's revoked as well. They take him, detain him, disappear him. We don't know on what charges. The president comes out, posts a post saying he's pro-terrorist, anti-American, very McCarthyite phrase. Not sure there's a law against being anti-American. Says there will be more such arrests coming. You have legal immigrants in this country, not just undocumented immigrants, now living in fear. And we know that if you start with green card holders, there's no reason they won't continue to citizens.
New citizens, that's right.
Naturalized citizens, people we've been talking about. Is this what fascism looks like?
Yes, frankly. I mean, again, I'm not, I want to be careful about how I talk about this. Fascism is a lot of things, but this is an element of totalitarianism, of fascism. And it's completely un-American and McCarthyite. And so if we continue the conversation that we've been having, what do we do? And I think you'll find earlier today I put up a tweet about this. Lots of other members have spoken out, raising hell. We'll all be doing, social media stuff to make this case, which is that there is no law against having an unpopular opinion. In fact, in this country, we used to cherish the standing that you had to articulate an unpopular opinion. So we'll be telling that case. Will we be passing a law in the House of Representatives? I'm sorry to say we will not.
Well, I've seen that 14 Democrats have signed a letter saying he should be immediately released.
Right.
Your name's not on that, but I assume you support the sentiment.
It will be.
You support the sentiment.
All right, that's enough. We get the point. So, look, how can we believe that they conducted a thorough investigation of Khalil if they didn't even know he had a permanent green card? And first of all, what did you think of what Representative Himes said?
Well, I respect Representative Himes, and he got his point across that he's clearly opposed to this, and I disagree that it's a sign of fascism. I think that is the law. The law is on the books, and if you don't like the law, change the law. But a big part is that this guy has been out there involved with this group that is seen as a terrorist supporting group. But again, you see a lot of stuff on social media about what he says and what he does. And until that's proven, he's entitled to remain here, but it's got to be proven. So I don't oppose the fact that they're going to have to go to a court and prove that this guy is exactly who the government says he is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I think that they should at least have done that before they detained him, or they could say, look, there's a suspicion of this. I just think that investigation, all of that should have been done beforehand. And I think this got ahead of them. And now they're trying to come up with a problem for a solution, if you know what I mean. Like they're backtracking and trying to fix it. That's all I'm saying. Florida lawman, that was one of the most fiery things we've had. Well, we've disagreed before, but not like that.
It's I think a sign of strength, Don, that in lemon law, you can never predict exactly which side I'm going to be on these things, because
I didn't expect you to be on any side. I expected you to come here and tell us what the law is and what you thought about it. And then it is your right to be able to agree or disagree with me, and my right to be able to agree or disagree. And we may have unpopular opinions, but if I haven't, sorry, someone's coming to get me. No.
I love the fact, Don, that you have on people who disagree with you. I think that's important. That's a sign of strength.
Yeah. Yes. I was just making a joke that I have an unpopular opinion about this. So they're at my door. They're going to take me away. I wouldn't want that for you. I wouldn't want it for me. I wouldn't want it for anybody. But thank you for that. Any final parting words before I chuck you out of here?
Hey, Don, I love the show. And I think it's great that you're doing so well out there. People do love you. And I hope you have me back. We can disagree on other things.
Of course, Dave. I just disagree with you on that. And it's our right as American citizens to do that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming.
One last thing. Who definitely disagrees with you on this? A guy named Adam Platzner. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, is he? Well, Platz. I know Platz. I know why he disagrees, but I don't think that Platz would disagree with due process. I think that
I know, but if you think I'm tough on this one, that Platz would be over the top. I'm sure, but I'll send him your best.
Tell Adam I said hello. All right, take care. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.